Before this story begins, take a moment to subscribe, because some stories are not meant to entertain you. They are meant to change the way you see people. People often say poverty destroys love, but what truly destroys love is pride mixed with ignorance. Because once pride enters a marriage, compassion quietly exits. And that was exactly how Bissy's story began. A woman whose mouth was sharper than hunger itself, a woman who believed poverty was a curse and silence was weakness. A woman who mocked her husband every chance she got without realizing she was mocking the very sacrifice that kept her future alive. For Bissy married Nonso believing marriage would upgrade her life, lift her status, and place her among admired women. But the day she entered his one-room apartment and saw the cracked walls staring back at her, the leaking ceiling dripping like slow tears, and two worn-out plastic chairs sitting helplessly in the corner, her heart sank in a way she could not explain. Yet she swallowed her disappointment and told herself things would get better, that marriage had seasons. But as years passed, the season never changed. Nonso had no visible job and did not leave home dressed for work like other men. Instead, he wandered the streets slowly, limping slightly, moving from house to house, sometimes asking for food, sometimes for money. And people pitied him deeply, praying for him openly, patting his back, calling him unfortunate. While Bissy watched from a distance with shame burning inside her chest, because while other women bragged about their husbands, she felt reduced to whispers and sympathy. Neighbors spoke to her gently, as if she were fragile, telling her God would help her husband someday, and each word felt like mockery, like a reminder that she was married to a charity case. Unable to bear the ridicule any longer, Bissy asked her brother for help, and soon opened a small shop, becoming the breadwinner of the home, waking up early, returning late, while her husband still wandered the streets, and though she offered him work at her shop lifting cartons, he refused, quietly explaining that his doctor warned him never to strain himself again because physical stress could kill him. But those words only fueled her anger, for to Bissy, pain was laziness in disguise, excuses were weakness, and silence was failure. So she cursed him, mocked him, reminded him daily that she now fed the house, that without her brother they would both be begging together. She compared him endlessly to other men who were building houses, buying cars, creating generational wealth, while he built nothing but pity. And slowly her cruelty evolved, starting with smaller portions of food, delayed meals, casual insults disguised as jokes, until insults became her normal language, calling him furniture, asking if he knew shame, while Nonso lowered his head and remained silent, enduring hunger, humiliation, and emotional wounds from the woman he loved, a silence she mistook for weakness, not knowing that some silences are endurance. Outside the house he was pitied by strangers, inside the house he became a silent punching bag. And one evening her bitterness finally exploded as she screamed that he was the reason her life was stuck, that marrying him dragged her backward, that he was a curse to her destiny, words that cut deeper than hunger ever could, leaving Nonso frozen in shock, walking out to sit alone under the night sky, as thoughts crushed his chest. Yet her cruelty did not stop there. For some nights, she locked food away completely and told him to go beg, since begging was his profession, reminding him that her family almost gave her to him for free, while other men paid full bride price, forcing him to nod in agreement with his own humiliation. Until the day everything shattered when, after insulting him all night, she pushed him out of the house and told him not to return unless he worked, saying if he collapsed and died, it would be better than dying lazy. Then dropped the cruelest truth of all, by confessing she terminated a pregnancy because she could not bring a child into a world where the father was a beggar, words that struck Nonso harder than any slap, freezing him completely as tears streamed silently down his face, for the child he never knew about was gone, sacrificed on the altar of pride, and without speaking he walked away broken, determined to rewrite his destiny. Going to a construction site where he picked up a shovel, despite the pain tearing through his body, sweat pouring down his face until his chest tightened, vision blurred, and he collapsed unconscious. Rushed to the hospital, where machines hissed beside his lifeless body, and when Bissy arrived and saw him lying motionless with tubes and oxygen, fear finally replaced pride. only to be shattered when the doctor screamed that he had been warned never to walk again, revealing that stress alone could kill him. And in that moment, Bissy realized the truth she refused to hear for years, that her husband was never lying. Regret crashing over her as memories flooded her mind, the hunger, the insults, the locked food, the aborted child, until Nonso revealed the final truth that all the money he begged for was saved carefully, millions untouched, gathered quietly so his family would survive when his body failed him, confessing he swallowed shame so his child would never beg. Words that destroyed Bissy completely as she realized the man she mocked was the one carrying their future silently. The silence she despised was sacrifice. And when Nonso recovered, life did not magically improve. The house remained small, walls cracked, chairs old, but something powerful returned. Respect. Bissy changed, stopped shouting, stopped comparing, stopped using words as weapons, learned to listen, learned that strength is not always loud and provision does not always come from visible struggle. Planning together for the first time as she closed her shop early, choosing her marriage over pride, cooking with care, apologizing not once but daily through actions, honoring the unborn child by becoming kinder, softer, wiser, and the lesson remains heavy and unforgettable. That not every poor person is lazy, not every silent person is weak. Pain does not always announce itself. Illness does not look dramatic. Words can destroy faster than hunger. Emotional abuse is real, and pride, once unchecked, can destroy lives, love, and futures before the truth is finally understood. And yet, even after respect returned, guilt refused to leave Bissy's heart, because some mistakes do not disappear with apologies. They stay like quiet scars, reminding us of who we were when we chose cruelty over understanding. And every night as she lay beside Nonso listening to his careful breathing, she remembered the nights she let him sleep hungry. The mornings she pushed him out like trash. The days she told him to collapse and die without knowing death was already knocking at his door. And sometimes she would wake up trembling, tears soaking her pillow, whispering apologies into the darkness even when he was asleep, because regret speaks loudest when the world is silent. And Nonso, though forgiving, carried his own invisible wounds, for silence does not mean pain disappears. It only means pain learned to survive quietly, and some days his body still ached, reminding him of the years he sacrificed dignity for survival, yet he never threw her past in her face, never reminded her of the child they lost, because love, when real, does not keep records of wrongs. And slowly their home began to change, not through money or new furniture, but through gentleness, through conversations that replaced shouting, through meals shared with gratitude instead of insults, through mornings where Bissy asked instead of commanded, listened instead of accused, and learned that marriage was not a competition but a partnership. And as neighbors noticed the change, their pity turned into respect, whispers faded, and curiosity replaced mockery, because nothing confuses people more than quiet transformation. And when questions came, Bissy no longer defended herself with pride. She simply smiled, knowing that peace no longer needed explanations. And Nonso, with careful planning, began investing his savings wisely. Small businesses, safe opportunities that did not strain his body, proving that productivity does not always require physical strength. And for the first time, Bissy saw intelligence where she once saw weakness, foresight where she once saw excuses, and patience where she once saw laziness. And she realized how dangerously wrong society had taught her to measure a man's worth. Because the world claps for noise but ignores wisdom, celebrates struggle it can see but doubts pain it cannot touch. And Bissy often wondered how many marriages were dying quietly under the weight of comparison. How many good men were being destroyed by words instead of poverty? How many women were unknowingly becoming weapons against the very people meant to protect them? And she understood that her story was not unique. It was simply loud enough to teach a lesson. That love dies when listening stops. That pride turns partners into enemies. That ignorance can be more deadly than hunger. And sometimes the most dangerous abuse leaves no bruises, only broken confidence, broken dignity, and broken futures. And as time passed, Bissy chose to honor the child she never met by becoming a voice of kindness, rather than cruelty. By helping other women understand that hardship is not always laziness, and silence is not always guilt, that some people are fighting wars their bodies cannot show. And Nonso, though forever changed, found peace in knowing that his suffering was not wasted, that his endurance planted wisdom where ignorance once lived. And when life tested them again, as life always does, they faced it together, not as rivals, but as survivors. Understanding that love is not proven by wealth or public admiration, but by patience during misunderstanding, loyalty during weakness, and humility when proven wrong. And so this story stands as a mirror rather than a judgment, asking us to pause before we speak, to listen before we accuse, to love before we compare, because words once spoken cannot be retrieved, pride once unleashed rarely warns before it destroys, and sometimes the greatest tragedy is not poverty itself, but the blindness it creates when mixed with ego. For not every poor man is lazy, not every quiet person is weak, and not every sacrifice announces itself loudly. Some sacrifices walk slowly, limp quietly, beg publicly, and save privately, carrying futures on wounded backs while enduring insults in silence, waiting for a day when truth finally speaks louder than pride.